anybody in the Cypress test talk right before this? You guys are gluttons for this. So I thought that was fun that they were back to back. You will find many things similar because it's a similar style of testing. But yeah, let's jump in. First off, we just want to let you help you be aware of CFCast, the premier CFML training site. Has a lot of videos, training courses, access to previous Into the Box conferences. You can go check it out. Lots of free content as well at cfcast.com. If you'd like to follow along with the slides, there's a link down there. You can go through them at your leisure or follow us here. And let's talk about what you can expect today in this session. We are going to talk about cbPlaywright, which is a library for working with Playwright made by Microsoft. We're going to go over that Playwright library, specifically their Java library. There is a companion command box library that will help in getting drivers set up for you. We'll talk about some end-to-end testing selector strategies, which may be more of art than science. And we're going to do some live coding of Playwright tests because it is fun. We're not going to talk about any other kinds of testing. So if you're interested in unit or integration, those are all great as well. But that's not what we're covering. If you wanted to hear about Cypress, you're too late. That was the one before this. Still a great tool as well. But let's jump in. That's me. Hail from Utah. I work for Orta Solutions. Made a lot of modules that you may have heard of. If not, here's your first one, cbPlaywright. One wife, 3 kids, 2 dogs. They're amazing. Type 1 diabetic and a bit of a theater nerd. Okay, so what is cbPlaywright? cbPlaywright, as mentioned, is a module that gives you all the necessary jar files and drivers to run Playwright Java. It also provides integration into TestBox and optionally ColdBox. Let me make that clear. This is completely ColdBox optional. If you are just using TestBox or you haven't done any testing, you'll be able to get started with this in your application. And there are lots of helper methods for making interacting with the Java library easy. Playwright Java is a big fan of option builder objects, which are less fun to do in plain CFML. So we make that a little bit easier. So that's cbPlaywright. So what is this Playwright thing? Well, Playwright is a cross-browser testing tool. It's made by the folks at Microsoft. You can see a bunch of different languages and browsers that you can automate with it. Before this was a session on Cypress. Cypress does the same job. The idea is you are going to automate a browser to do tests for you. It will test, and this is where the phrase end-to-end comes in, because it will test every single part about your application as if a user was doing it, just really fast because the computer's doing it. This is a great place to start out, especially if you have an application that's not very well tested, or you have some code paths that are hard to test, because you're probably clicking around your site, making sure it works. Now you can record what you're doing and have it run through a Playwright test. Okay, so if Playwright Java exists, why is cbPlaywright a thing? Why, what's the benefit we're going to get over this? Well, first, we've gotten all the necessary jars, the dependencies of Playwright Java, so you don't have to go installing Maven and doing the Maven install. And we have a companion command box module for getting the correct platform drivers, which can be tricky because the drivers are updating often. They have to match exactly. And the Java one specifically comes with every operating system. So it has a Windows version, Linux ARM, Mac ARM, and it's just big, and you don't need all that. And so we slim it down for you as well. And we have helper functions to turn the top stuff into the bottom stuff. That's why I'm talking about the screenshot options here. They're lovely options thing, and casting things to paths and strings, and all that can turn into this because Cold Fusion. Yay! All right, let's talk about installing it. There is some setup for this since there is Java integration. So you can install by using command box to install cbPlaywright. It'll install in the root of your application. Once again, you do not need to do this in a cold box application. It works in any application using TestBox. Most of my slides that have the box install, that's like the only step you have to do, but there is more work this time. I'm so sorry. So about the driver. I started trying to do this just from the Playwright Java jars because it needs to be able to talk to a browser. And it was, I mean, finicky is probably the nice way to say it. It was very large. It was hard to get the right commands through. Ends up that the Java driver is just wrapping Node and the Node library, like under the hood. So you're, which is nice that you don't have to download Node and get that installed, but at the end it's all JavaScript. That's the world we live in. Okay, so then we had command box cbPlaywright. So you can install this alongside cbPlaywright in your application, and this will let you install the right drivers. It also gives you a pass-through to that Playwright CLI, which you can use to install different browsers. You can open up a website to start recording what you're doing, and we'll show all of that. So the cbPlaywright namespace is for managing drivers, and the Playwright passes straight through to Microsoft's CLI. So anything you put here is what you would find on Microsoft's webpage. So that's the installation side. We have two things to install, the command box module and the cbPlaywright library. I guess one note on the command box module. Where is it? Nope, I don't. Okay. One note on it. If you would like to provide your own driver, there is a way to do that. If you want that pain, that is fine. There's an environment variable you can pass through and manage that all yourself. Okay. We have jars to load, so we need to add that to our Java settings. This is going to be just for our test application CFC. We don't need to load this in our main application. So here I'm pointing to that cbPlaywright lib folder. And we're going to load all of the jars inside that directory. We'll create a mapping. That way we can extend the cbPlaywright test case we're going to get. This is the optional setting the driver path. If you use the command box module, you can skip this step. If not, you need to point this to the path on your directory that has the drivers in it. And now we're good to go. So let's jump into how to use this tool. So first, we're going to make a test. This test will extend the cbPlaywright test case. When you extend a test in TestBox normally, this would be base spec, TestBox system base spec. Here it's cbPlaywright models Playwright test case. There is also a cold box Playwright test case that extends cold box's base test case. Other than that, the helpers are identical. So if you are running a cold box app, using this second one would give you access to your cold box environment, access to Wirebox that you can set up and tear down in your tests. Other than that, like I said, the helpers are identical, and also when you hit your application, you are hitting whatever URL you pass it, right? It's not something that's running just inside this test. It exists separately, which is something to remember when running these tests. Okay, so what are some of the things we can do with this? Well, we can visit a web page. So here, we will launch a browser using this nifty helper tool, and we give it the name of a browser that we want to run. It supports Chromium, Firefox, Chrome, Edge, Safari, probably others. You can check out Microsoft's own Playwright website to see the current list. Once you have a browser, you can ask it for a page. Playwright supports testing multiple pages at once. You can, or if you need to orchestrate that, or if you wanted to make sure a page opens in the new tab rather than like a link just navigating as normal. We'll use the navigate helper to tell it what URL we want to go to. Here we're waiting for that page to load before we make an expectation on the title that is Google. Okay. One note I've mentioned a few times, there's a lot of helper functions, and you'll see many of them here. This Playwright object right here, this is the Java object given to you. Every method that you see in Playwright's docs can be called here. You can create all those classes. Nothing is like hidden behind. You won't need a library update if there's not a helper that you would like. That being said, you saw some of the code earlier. You probably want the helpers, and that's why they exist. Okay, we can fill out a form. How do we do that? Well, on a page, we can locate an element. We can pass in selectors, and we're going to talk about some strategies for that. You also don't need to know the selector by yourself. There's ways to generate these tests, to pause them, and to click around your website, and to have a script given to you that says this is what you should pass in. Once we have that search box, we fill it with Playwright, we push the enter key, and then we expect our page URL to include our Google search. So let's talk about what makes a good selector. Again, you can use their tool, and that will make it very easy, and you can copy exactly what they have out. They do a pretty good job. But this is a good overview of this. Kind of a three-tiered approach, if you will. The first are queries for elements that are accessible to everybody. This includes roles, getting things by label text, placeholder text, display value. This ensures some accessibility in your website as well. If you're trying to get the label for the search box, the search box field, and you can't select it by a label text, it means you don't have a label there, which is something that somebody with using accessibility technologies would be missing, right? So that's why this first section is really great on that. Semantic queries by alt text or title. And then finally, test IDs. Test IDs are the idea that you can put a data attribute of a test ID and some custom name. So if all these fail and you need to select this specific input, give it a test ID. You notice I didn't say an ID or a class, because who knows when our designers are going to change that, or we change it ourselves. We want to have a selector that's not going to change often on us, because then we'll just be updating our tests and not feel like we're getting much value out of them. This is mostly taken from the testing library site. If you want to get some more ideas about it, they use the same kind of three-tiered approach, talking about selectors and what makes a good selector. Okay, my favorite thing about cbPlaywright, it's nice and all that it can like click around my site and do that great, and that's probably what I should appreciate the most, but mine are all the little utilities around it. So first we're going to talk about screenshots. So at any point in here, you can screenshot a page. Give it the page object, and you give it a path to where you want that screenshot saved to. And you can call that multiple times on the page if you want to take pictures of it throughout. There are tools that can compare images that you take and see if your home page has changed from the last time, to do regression testing, in case you want to make sure that nobody's, touched your pixel perfect design. You can record a video. So, picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth 24 pictures a second, right? Anyways, you ask for a recorded context. It gets the verbs, not verbs. The nouns get a little complicated here. So we're going to record a context, which is a collection of pages, if you will, right? So not just a single page. We pass it our browser. We give it a path to a directory because you are going to get a video per page that's generated. If you have one page, one video. If you open 3 pages, 3 videos. Remember that links that open new tabs, that's considered a new page, and so you get a new video for that as well. That's why you pass a directory here. That passes in the context, and from that context you can get new pages just like we did off the browser. At the end of that, whether it passes or fails, it cleans up and saves the videos that it has to that directory. And because we keep getting better, you can do a trace. This is what got me hooked on Playwright in the first place. A trace is a zip file that contains a step-by-step going through what your test did, all the steps you told it to take, a timeline at the top to scrub through to see what changed on the page, all the network requests that were made on the page, where you clicked based on your selectors. It's incredible. So we give that a path to a zip file right up here. And this is what it looks like. There's a progressive web app, does not send your data anywhere. You can also run it locally if you want. This is at trace.playwright.dev. You drag that zip file on and you get all of this included. So this is one of the tests we're going to look at. It'll show you all the tracks of the different pages, how they were rendering. Just amazing stuff when you need to debug why your test is not working the way you think it should. Enough talking. Let's actually go code some Playwright tests. Make this guy big, though we'll only be here for long enough to open VS Code, so maybe didn't need to spend that long. All right, I have a blank repo here. We're going to start by scaffolding an application. Going to throw in cbPlaywright. We're going to start coding some tests and walking along all of these new features. So I'm going to create a ColdBox app. Once again, you do not have to use a ColdBox app, but this comes with TestBox already installed and ready to go, and an application we can poke around at. I also already have cbPlaywright installed. I'll show it right there. But I would just use this install command box cbPlaywright command. It would automatically download the latest driver. Okay. All right, I do need to install cbPlaywright into this application. You can see right in our modules folder, there's cbPlaywright right there. And we'll go add in that required mapping and Java settings. We have a tests, application CFC, and go right down here. Okay, let's start up a server here. Okay, here's our ColdBox application template for our app. And we'll keep that here, but we'll also open up our tests right now. There's a test included with TestBox, and we're going to just ignore that test. We're going to go make our first Playwright test now. I prefer making a new folder for this, calling it EDE for end-to-end. None of that's required, and if you have a different naming convention, that is awesome. And I don't know, we'll do first Playwright test. We'll extend cbPlaywright models Playwright test case. And just to make sure we have it, we'll just have it fail for a second. There's our test. Okay. So we want to get a browser. Variable launch browser. And I believe that's not how you spell Playwright. I've installed Chromium. So if I wanted to install another browser, I could come down to this. Remember, Playwright passes through to the Playwright CLI. So I could do Playwright install. Maybe I install Firefox here. It looks like I have that one installed. Edge. Ooh. Invalid. It wants MS Edge because we would get confused between Microsoft Edge and the other Microsoft Edge. So we'll let this go, but again, this is downloading a browser. This is going to take a while, so we're just going to kind of close this and move on in the meantime. So we launch our browser. Let's do that Google test to start. We'll get a new page. We're going to navigate our page to google.com. Wait for a load state on the page, and then expect our page title to be Google. Let's see how we do. And we pass, and you're just going to take my word for it, right? Maybe you want to see that happen. Well, if we switch this to launch interactive browser, give that a refresh. There's Chromium popping up for us. Very quick. But you can see that happening there. Maybe I want to stop the page and see what was on it. When I'm in the interactive mode, so this launch interactive browser, I can call page.pause. If you're not, it just ignores it and keeps going on. So throw that up there. And now, not only is the browser paused, but I get this Playwright inspector. This, when I hit record, is going to record all the button presses I have here. And I don't know which one of these is decline. That one, I don't know. Was that accept? Now Google knows everything about my throwaway Chromium browser. If I come back over here, you can see the code that's generated based on what we just did. Let's try to make this a little bit bigger so you can see where it is getting a button with this name. German, I don't know. Should have switched to English first. You can also switch this from Java to Node.js if you would like. I find this a little easier for me to copy and paste because neither of them are exact, unfortunately. But this is probably closer than the Java code. So you can see getting that button, clicking it, and then it chooses to close these. This happens automatically for you. When you hit resume, the test goes on. That was a long test. It was 71 seconds because we paused. Okay. Let's stop doing Google for a minute, and I want to test the site that I'm currently running, right? I'm running a ColdBox application. Well, we have a nice helper called route that will build up a route for you based on what you pass in and whatever the base URL is of your server. So let's go ahead and run this. I expect this to fail because my site's not called Google, right? Expected Google, but received welcome to ColdBox. So I can go ahead and update that if I want. I can screenshot the page And we'll throw that to tests, results, first, playwright test, and coldbox.png. These work without the interactive as well. So if I take that off for a second, go ahead and run this. When it turns green, I can come over to test, results, and here's the coldbox site. I'll keep interactive on mostly because it's more entertaining for you watching out here if we don't just stare at TestBox running. Okay, so we've come to a page. We want to do something with that page, right? So let's go ahead and pause at this point and see what we can click around on. This is how I usually come up with these tests, is I get to a certain point and I say, okay, now record. I want to click this button, which is not working well. Maybe we won't click that button. Let's see what else we could do. Okay, I'm going to close that for a second. I happen to have the actual ones we want in here. So let's see, right here. Okay, so we're going to click that About button. We're going to click the official site and then take a screenshot of the coldbox site. We'll rename this to Home. These screenshots do not clean up, but they do overwrite. So I've just renamed this. There's going to be a coldbox.png in this results folder forever until I go do something about that. Let's see. This might work. Page locator. Remember, page is a Java object here. This is the method on it. So or that might be the JavaScript method. We'll find out soon. Yeah, it worked. There is a locate element as well, when you can pass in page to that. So these should be equivalent. Same for click. I'll be honest, a lot of the helper functions exist because Adobe is very terrible at following some of these Java things. But if you're running Lucy, you should be just fine. If I go ahead and run that again, you can see that these still work. If we check out home, there's our home page. Coldbox site, though. That's not the picture we expected. We expect to be on the new coldbox site. What's going on? You need to wait for things to happen in your Playwright test. This is the biggest downside of this kind of testing, is it is slow compared to all the other kinds, because you're waiting for a browser, you're waiting for the state to load. So we can go ahead and throw that down on this. We'll say wait for URL. I don't know if this is right. We'll see. Run this. There you go. Oh, and we're going to learn something else right now. You can see the test is still running. Playwright's default timeout is 30 seconds. You can override that on any of these points by passing in a timeout. But it's running and you're like, wait, I'm on coldbox. What's going on? Well, when we clicked this link, this will time out in a second. But when we click this link right here, it opened in a new tab, which is a new page. So this page that we're waiting for is the old URL still. We need, if that makes sense. So there are some helpers. Believe it's called wait for pop-up. Let's see. Wait for. Yes. So we'll call this the coldbox page. We're going to wait for a pop-up. And what goes inside here is whatever you need to do to get that new page. And it will give it to you right here. So now we'll wait for the URL on that page and screenshot that page. It still does not like what we did. Let's see. Oh, is that? Yes, that is. And close this. We can make the test stop earlier. We don't need to wait for 30 seconds. Is that happy? It's not happy there either. Let's see. There we go. And if we check out our Coldbox site, it's not quite loaded yet, but it's there. Okay. Let's throw in some of the other niceties that we had. Let's record some videos here. Right? So we want, let's see, new, recorded, context for browser. Give it, that's going to be our tests, results, first Playwright test videos, and then a function for the context. We'll move all of this stuff inside. And instead of browser new page, we're going to get that off of the context. Let's go ahead and run this again, see what we get video-wise. Okay. We have 2 videos here. And good. VLC is doing its job. They save in WebM. I don't think there's a way to save them in anything else. So hopefully you have something that can play WebM files. They're not very long, as you saw. But you also can notice that video, they're both, that first video is sticking around a little bit, right? We've clicked the link, it still exists. That page is going to stay open until either the test finishes or you call a close method on it, right? It's like having that tab still open in your browser. So right here, after we've waited for this page, we can call page.close. And you can see it closed up there in the URL bar as well. So a little bit of cleanup. Honestly, unless your test is, close to 30 seconds more long, it probably won't hurt you too much. Maybe a little bit of disk space if you're recording all the videos. So videos also don't clean up after. This is a great thing that you can just put into like a before each if you want here. Or before all to clean out that folder. Make sure it's ready for where it goes. And that's because it's a different hash each time. All right, so we have the videos. Let's do the trace, because the trace is so impressive. Where is trace context? So we're going to put this inside the video call because it uses the context that it has. Path to the zip. We get that same context out. The reason all these things go inside of the closure is so whether it passes or fails, we can clean up after ourselves and not leave these open. And we'll rename this just for fun. Give this a path, results, first, playwright, test, and trace.zip. Okay. Here's that trace file. We'll reveal it here, and I'm going to come over to, this is the trace.playwright.dev. Like it says here, it doesn't send your trace anywhere, it opens it locally. You can get this off of GitHub and run it yourself as well. But let's take that trace file right in. And zooming the UI in makes it a little hard for everything to fit, but you can see the action that it took right here, creating a new page, right? Request finishing and happening, page navigating to our local host, what it looks like. Right there is where our UI starts to appear. We took a screenshot. You can also click on any of these states on the side. Here's our waiting for the pop-up. And you can also see there's multiple tracks, right? And this was waiting for the URL to pop in. Now I think it's hidden. Yeah, here on the right, you can see the action that it's waiting for the URL, load state change to load, but also any network requests that are made. So if you're testing a single page app, you can see all those different things. Here's the CSS and JavaScript that this loaded by default, right? So extremely powerful tool. You can see the red dot about where we're clicking. So again, far and away my favorite feature of Playwright. Makes it very easy to go back and see what happened, why can't I click on the right thing. Okay. In fact, the last time I did this presentation, we used this to find the problem of there was a banner pop-up where it wasn't on one of the sites we visited, right? It was just failing, waiting, timing out. And we were able to go pull open the trace and see, oh, there's a banner. It's preventing any other interaction on the page. Let's click the close button and move on with our life. Okay. That's all for the demo. Showing you mostly the utilities, some of the selectors. Again, the best ways to get started in your app is to add that pause and start recording, or if you would like, there is a command from the command line. Let's see. Code gen. Here we go. Where you can pass this in. Again, this is to their own CLI, but we can say code gen and give it any site. So in this case, we can go to CFCamp. And it's going to pop open a browser, pop open the inspector, and give you a way to just go from there. So you don't even have to start with a test and pausing. I can go ahead and record. Am I? Yep. Tell them I accept cookies because I have to. And then we want to go to the schedule, and you can see over here all the different things. By default, it's giving us all these get by roles. That's perfect. Those are good selectors. They will change when you change the text, but that might be exactly what you want. And yeah, I can copy almost verbatim all of this into cbPlaywright to go. So that is our demo here. When you close that, it just ends the session. You make sure to copy that code before you go because it's just gone. That is our demo. Let's talk about some bonus things here at the end. Since this is running in TestBox, it's pretty easy to get this into a CI environment. So this is GitHub Actions. And really the only difference between this and the normal TestBox action is not that. Is right down here where we install the Playwright dependencies. So install dependencies installs all the things it needs for the operating system it's on. So in this case, an Ubuntu box. And then installing any of the browsers that you would like to do. We didn't really look at the browsers as well, different browsers. But if I changed out Chromium for Firefox, I would then be running in Firefox. You can run those in parallel. You can run multiple browsers at the same time in the same test, right? By asking for more than one browser from Playwright, you can orchestrate it as much as you want. If you've ever thought about how do I test WebSockets, you can have two different browsers open and looking for the events from each other. You could test like a whole chat app here. I don't know any other way besides an end-to-end test to know like, yes, it worked all the way through. And then yeah, you just run your TestBox tests. This does come with that one caveat that if you're running and you're used to running all your tests in a testing environment, when you hit your application, you're probably not in a testing environment. It's in whatever you started it up as. Development, if you're hitting a staging server, the data is not going to be like automatically rolled back because it's a completely different request, right? It's as if somebody actually went to your website and tested it. So cleanup can be a little different, and you can add that all into TestBox life cycles. All right. Thank you much. If you have any questions, you can come up here after and